Welcome to the Kelly Sullivan Walden Show, where we explore nighttime dreams, daytime desires, and the best ways to transform the tragic into magic. Because let's face it, we all dream, we all have our blessings, and we all have our challenges, myself included. And I don't want any of us to take any of those things lying down, if you know what I mean. I just wrote a book entitled A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste. I'm excited to explore the topic with you, whether it relates to your waking or sleeping dreams, because we're dreaming all the time, people. So let's make it the best dream possible. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Okay, I am so excited about today's show. I am just freaking out. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking with Melisa St. Hilaire, and she's got a new book out called Real Signs from the Afterlife. And she's somebody who I met through my stepdaughter, Misha Walden. Misha met her through the Dark Zone and the Los Angeles Police Museum and all of this paranormal investigation that they were doing together. And I fell in love with Melisa, and she's got a new book that's out, 30 Real Signs from the Afterlife. We're going to talk all about that. Let me give a proper introduction for this amazing and gorgeous woman, gorgeous inside and out. Melisa St. Hilaire grew up in the backwoods of Massachusetts, had her first mediumship experience at age 3, began reading tarot cards at 12, and has been mystified by the occult ever since. She offers intuitive and mediumship readings and classes at the Green Man store in North Hollywood, California. She also leads paranormal investigations with the Dark Zone and the Spirit Realm Network. Her new web series, Secrets of the Craft, is available now on Dead Air Full Spectrum. That's it. Dead Air Full Spectrum. And her new book, 30 Real Signs from the Afterlife, comes out May 7th. And I am so excited to be with you, Melisa. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I'm so happy to be here.
So I just feel such a kindred connection with you. I feel like we are just sisters from another mister. In reading your book, I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so what I love is that there's this very practical mysticism. Like, it's super mystical, as mystical as it gets, but you are really grounded, very kind of practical. And there's a whole section in the book, and I just got to finish reading it, and it's so good. All about like the signs. It's almost like looking at life as if it's a dream. This is my interpretation, because a lot of
Yes.
the work I do is in dreams. So it's like looking at life as if it were a dream and interpreting the signs from that dream perspective. So, and it's so funny, a bird, like a random little bird that had these bright red feathers just like popped up outside my window. I'm like, okay, that isn't common and that means something. So I'm going to ask you, let's start off with that little bird with the little red feathers. What would you make of that in
Oh,
your waking
wow.
dream?
Well, if I saw a little red bird with red feathers, I would immediately be like, "Oh, spirit is trying to invigorate me for something." You know what I mean? Trying to give
Yes.
me passion, trying to give me some fire, and also bringing a message from the spirit side or the spirit realm, because birds are considered psychopumps, and
Right.
so they can carry messages to and from the dead. So it would be like, okay, spirit is definitely sending me this bird to be like, "You're okay. We got you. We're supporting you." And also that
Mm,
little burst of red just to be
yes.
like, "Here, and have some fire, have some power."
Isn't that funny? And on your hand, as you were saying that, on your wrist, there's this little pop of red, just a little pop. Like
Yes.
that's, yeah. Okay, so yeah, to not take the signs around us for granted, and yet don't make like you go back and forth and you say, don't make too much of them. Like we want to
Yes.
also be grounded. So say something about that. So how do you look at the world symbolically and yet how do you be here and be kind of rational at the same time? How the hell do
Well,
you do that?
it's a delicate balance, and I kind of sometimes feel like it's a tightrope act. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Because what the thing that I've learned the most in life is you have to be present. You have to be in the moment that you're in. I feel like so many of us, without even realizing it, we will dwell on the past. We'll be like, oh gosh, I wish I hadn't said that thing that time in that place. That was really awkward. Or we
Hmm.
worry about the future and we're like, what's going to happen? Is my book going to sell okay? Or whatever it is.
Right, right,
And it's the same. But neither of those things really help us. There's a certain
right.
degree of looking at the past where we don't want to make the same mistakes, obviously. And there's a certain
Hmm.
degree of looking at the future where we want to plan ahead, but you don't want to live in either of those places. You want to live in the now. And so the way that I connect that to spirit signs is, yes, we are surrounded by signs all of the time, but I truly believe that the ones that we are meant to receive, the ones that are more specifically sent, will come with like a little something extra. You know what I mean? Like, for example, that bird showed up. Now, you could see a bird out your window 100 times, but for some reason, that one time, that one bird with the red
Hmm.
kind of sparked your interest.
Yeah,
So I kind of differentiate by feeling, like, does this experience feel like it has more weight than normal? Does that make
right.
sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Because we could kind of go crazy if we're looking at every single thing, just like in a dream. If we try to interpret every single little like hair of like on the head of the thing or like the hay in the haystack, it's like we could go out of our mind. So we have to just kind
Totally.
of kind of just like go with the pieces that really stand out with exclamation marks or just bizarre question marks or like,
Yes.
and I always take heart. I feel like I think it was the naturalist, I think, oh my gosh, I'll think of his name. It'll come to me. He said that in nature, even like just in a little leaf in nature, it contains the entire forest. So I
Yes.
think, okay, even if I don't interpret the entire dream or we look at every single thing, what if the one that we do pick up has everything in it that we need?
Exactly. Oh, totally. And like when I think about dreams, I think about, I have really crazy vivid dreams almost every single night of my life. I am
Wow.
always traveling off somewhere. I could
Yeah.
be on another planet or wherever. And for years, I struggled because you'd always read, like, oh, you should journal your dreams because they can contain messages and guidance and things like that. And for years, I struggled because I'd be like, but there's so many details. I don't want to spend a half hour every morning, like, I was
Right.
walking down
No.
the hallway and it was green. And then I saw a flickering light. And then, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Look up green, look up hallway, flickering light. What? Right.
right, it's too much. So I tried to, like, learn with dreams. What comes to mind when you first wake up? Like, what is the most significant thing? You might have
Yes.
this whole complicated dream, but for some
Yes.
reason, a yellow ribbon is the thing that stands out. Then
Uh-huh.
it's like, oh, okay, well, all this other stuff happened, but I'm going to focus on this yellow ribbon because that feels like a sign. And it's
Yes.
kind of the same with everything around me. Like, I could
Yeah.
look in my room right now. I'm in my office, and you can
It's
see I have
awesome.
all my doodads behind me,
Yeah.
and I could look around and be like, everything I look at could be technically a sign, but what's going through my head as I'm moving through the world? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I,
Right.
for example, when I first moved into my house, I was like, did I make the right decision? This is a big purchase. And
Right.
I had a moment of freaking out of like, gosh, can we do this? Is this for real? And all of a sudden, right outside of my house on the big tallest tree in my yard, a mockingbird showed up and started singing this complicated song. And so you know it's a mockingbird instantly because it's like the song is all over the place, you know. And
Mm,
I had this flash of memory went through my head of my grandma when I was little, and
mm.
she had said that if when she dies, she wants to come back as a mockingbird because then she can sing all the birds' songs. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is that my grandmother being like, and of all the birds in Southern California to be in my yard the day that I move in, it happens to
Yeah.
be a mockingbird. So, because I was worried in my mind, I take that as a
Right.
sign,
Yep.
as it's like my grandma come in and say, you did the right thing. You're supposed to be here. You know what I
Ah,
mean?
exactly. It's almost like the universe operates on this call and response. Like the call is the pain, the ache, the question, the burning desire, and then the response is here, interpret it through the lens of this. And then it's like we get our answers. Okay, so
Exactly.
let's go back to the beginning of when you were a little girl in Massachusetts. So the first time you started to tap in to people that other people couldn't see, and so bring us back to your first remembered experience.
Yeah. So, well, I was really little and I didn't really understand that there was a difference between the living and the dead, I think, at first. I know that sounds weird to say, but everything was kind of the same for me. And
Right.
it wasn't until I was 3 years old and my grandfather had just passed away. And at the time, I didn't even understand what that meant. Like everyone said, oh, your grandfather died, but that the word death meant nothing to me.
Hmm.
And I walked in on my grandmother. I was with her all the time because my parents always worked. I was an only child, latchkey kid. So my grandma, and she never used to like hang out in her bedroom. She would always be out with me. We would be outside all the time. So it was odd that she was in her bedroom. So I had gone in there to check on her and she was crying. And I remembered asking her, like, Grammy, why are you crying? And she said, because your grandfather is gone. And I pointed to a chair in the corner of the room that was otherwise empty. But I saw him there and I said, no, he's not. He's right over there. And it was like the air in the room just changed and she stopped crying. And then the next part is kind of a blank for me. It's like I don't really totally remember what happened, but I've since learned that this is a common occurrence when spirit starts talking through me. I kind of like, it's like my own ego checks out and I just become a vehicle for the message. And I know she asked me a bunch of questions. I don't remember the questions, but I feel like it had something to do with like talking to him and trying to discern, is it just my little kid imagination or is he actually in the room? And whatever questions she asked me and whatever answers I gave her, they satisfied her. And I never saw her cry again. And it was like from that moment forth, she never dated again. If anyone asked her, why aren't you dating, Vera? Why you should date? She would be like, I I'm married, and she wasn't going to
Oh,
explain to all these random people because my granddaughter can see my husband who's still around, of course. But it was sort of this, it became this sort of private thing of like, I can see him, but it's only meant for Grammy. And so I didn't really, she kind of told me not to tell a lot of people. I remembered that. I remember having this impression of, oh, what I can do is a little different, and I probably shouldn't tell too many people because they might think it's a little bit weird.
it's so special, and it is such a, it's like it's called a gift to have this because it provides such a gift for people. I mean, like there's nothing that could heal a person more than that affirmation, that being a bridge to be able to say, oh, he's right here. And I mean, that's because it's like the most existential ache that we all have is that our people are going to just go and be gone, and we're going to go and be gone, that there's just going to be this disappearing act and that's it. But to be able to have this confirmation, and your book talks about 30 real signs, and really within those 30 real signs from the afterlife, there's so many, there's probably hundreds within your book, because each one is like packs a punch of so many. So,
True.
but it's like, wow. So let's talk about some of the signs. I mean, I could look at your table of contents, which is awesome, but what are some of the main signs from the afterlife that come to you, when that like you share with your clients?
Sure.
What are some of the main signs?
Well, definitely animals, mammals, birds, things like
Yes.
that. That seems to be a huge thing. Insects like butterflies.
Hmm.
Butterflies pop up in readings all the time, and it seems very specific to grandmothers for some reason. I mean, it's other people too, but for some
Yeah.
reason, grandmothers seem to always come back as butterflies or birds. Um, I would say
Wow.
also strange occurrences in weather has been something that's been
Hmm.
common.
Hmm.
Um, I've noticed that particularly, I mean, with people too, but particularly with animals. I've had a couple of rescue cats where, because
Oh
I'm one of those
yeah.
people, like I have right now, I think I have like 13 cats because some of them are, they're not going to stay with me forever.
Yeah. Fortunately, unfortunately, well, forever, but just not
Right.
in this form. Right.
Right, yeah, but I've got I've taken a lot of them, and sometimes you get rescue fails, cats you see out in the wild that you are working towards saving, and something happens in the interim, and you can't quite get to them.
Right.
And I had this one cat that I was this close. I had the appointment scheduled and everything to get him fixed and stuff. And he showed up in my driveway, unfortunately deceased. Nobody knows what happened to him. He didn't have a scratch on him. It was very peculiar. And it really, that one really took me out because I was
Yeah.
so close. And I
Oh
went in the
yeah.
backyard and I just sat there bawling my eyes out. And I was just like, universe, you've got to give me a sign. I need to know that he's okay. I need to know that everything happens for a reason. I need to know there was a reason that I wasn't supposed to save him. And
Mm.
almost immediately, I had this like trifecta of things happen where a
Mm.
hummingbird showed up and circled my head. Now, I mean, I get hummingbirds in my yard. So they do, it's an occurrence that happens, but they have never before like flown so close to my head that they circled it like a halo, and I could feel the beating. And then as soon as the hummingbird like
Mm-mm.
did that and went off, then all of a sudden the wind picked up, and it was a totally calm day. The wind picks up out of nowhere, swirls around me, and then to top it all off, a freaking butterfly, a little tiny white butterfly swoops in, and I was like, well, if I need, I'm like, I guess I got the 1, 2, 3 punch of like signs because, I was doubting myself, and I felt like I was like, is that really a sign? And then boom, another one. Is that really a sign? And then boom, and okay, all right, I get it, universe. 3 signs. So I would say like things like that are the most common.
Hmm.
It seems to be that whatever spirits can the most easily affect are the most common. So, and spirits, of course, are energy because everything in the known universe is energy, and spirits are just energy that aren't trapped in a mortal coil. And
Right.
so I find like, so energy is weather. So that's the wind, anything like
Yeah.
that.
Let me
Um,
let me just insert here just for a
yeah,
moment,
sure.
because my friend Gypsy, who's on the other side, she passed away 2020, and like in the middle of COVID, and she comes around a lot, and she's was just, you know, very powerful presence in my life. Um, so here's just a couple of things. Her ex husband, she had many ex-husbands, but her first ex-husband and I are in communication, and was he was grieving over what he thought was his dog was about to die. And so he was holding his dog, and he was praying to Gypsy, saying, Gypsy, like like help me. And he had this very strong image of Gypsy with one of their dogs and with their daughter, who was also on the other side, and like there was this warm like feeling. And he was like, okay, Gypsy. And then he started to hear this bzz, 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 and it was like this hummingbird that kept circling his head. And then started, was like right in front of his third eye. Zzz, and he was like trying to get rid of it because he was trying to tune into Gypsy on the other side, but it was so compelling and persistent. He was like, oh, Gypsy. Okay. Oh, okay, fine. And it was there for just like the longest. I mean, hummingbirds zip
Wow.
and zip and zip, but it was like there for so long. He calls me immediately after to just because every time we have a gypsy sighting, we check in with each other. So he calls me immediately afterwards, and I'm sitting on my porch working on my Animal Dreams Oracle deck. So this is kind of off to the side, and he tells me about this. Meanwhile, there's a hummingbird that's kind of hovering around me as well. I mean, it's like very similar, and I'm like, oh my God, Johnny, that is so friggin' cool. That's amazing. And okay, so we get off the phone, and I look down at what I had just been writing was the hummingbird card. I was in the middle of writing the card about I mean, I didn't connect it. And it was all about like the sweetness and the nectar and the, like, so it was like, it's like the trifecta. And so it's kind of special when there's like a shared experience of
Yes.
these, when it's not just, I mean, it's one thing when it's just us and that's enough. Like, that's enough. But then
Right.
to be like in a vortex with somebody else who's kind of, when it's happening together, it's kind of makes it even more undeniable. Do you find that?
Oh, absolutely, totally. And the cool thing about hummingbirds is their wings beat in such a way that it creates an infinity sign.
Yes. Oh God.
So to me, that says that, that means that Gypsy is with you forever.
Yeah.
She's letting you know that this is an eternal connection. You are the three of you are bound. You knew each other in a past life. You'll know each other in a future life, whatever, however it takes. You know what I mean? And it's interesting.
Oh.
With her, I get these two colors that come swooping in. I get red and purple. I don't know if that makes
Mm.
sense to you, but like I just get
Mhm.
this vibrant red flower color, and then I also get like a swath of purple.
Ooh, two items of clothing that she left me. Oh, I've got chills. Is this red dress and this purple poncho. She was always turquoise was like our mutual color, but the two things that she gave me was the red and the purple. So that's magical.
That's
Thank you for that.
awesome.
I recently interviewed Dr. Raymond Moody, and he was talking about in his new book SDEs, not just NDEs, but
Yes.
SDEs, like shared death experiences. So I imagine there's something, I don't know what the word would be about what I was just sharing with you about Johnny Gypsy's ex, like a shared
Like a shared
sighting.
sign experience.
Shared
Yeah,
sign
sign,
SSE, shared
something
sign
like
experience.
that.
Can we coin this? An
Yeah,
SSE, shared sign experience. Okay, I think that needs to be a book.
right?
Okay.
Because it
Next
does
on the
happen.
docket. Yes. Yeah, which kind of makes it a little bit more empirical. Like there's
Yes.
something where there's, whatever. Not that we need science to back anything up or proof, but yeah.
But it's good to have it, and I truly believe with all of my whole heart that we're gonna get there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
because it's not that far removed from, if you look at Project Gateway with the CIA and how they studied
Oh,
astral
yeah.
projection,
Right.
right? And they studied manifestation and things. I don't think they
Right.
used the word manifestation, but they looked
Mm.
at a lot of what the Monroe Institute is doing with
Yep.
binaural frequencies and hemisync and
Yes.
things like that. And so, because we are able to study that, we can see that human beings are affected by frequency. We can see that we give out frequency. I believe it's
Yeah.
our heart energy comes out like 3 feet or something like that from our body.
Yeah.
So, we're surrounded by energy fields. It only makes sense that that energy field, once we pass away, would exist in some other form and still be able to communicate and connect with us. And I totally believe someday science is going to get there. We
Yeah.
just we really have to remove the stigma, and that's slowly happening. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and to be allow like psychiatrists, psychologists, and other types of scientists to actually really go in and study, like maybe look at a person while they're talking to the dead, what happens in their brain when that happens. Do things light up? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Yeah.
to read the energy in the room. You know, when I go on paranormal investigations,
It right. Oh, let's
we
talk about that.
yeah, we can read the energy in the
You
room.
have
There's
monitors.
we have monitors, we have,
Right. Equipment.
thermometers, like all kinds of
Right.
things that shows like temperatures dropping or rising depending on spirit activity. We can pick up actual words that the spirits are saying, which is mind-boggling to
Oh.
me.
Okay, so let's talk about one of these. But let me say this first before I forget. I just want people to
Yes.
know, like, here's the thing: you're going to get signs from your beloveds on the other side, or from the universe that might be coming in these ways. And if you get like that little red winged bird, and you're like, okay, that's cool, but what do I do with it? This is why your book is so helpful because it's like a reference guide for all these signs and what
Yes.
they likely mean, unless you have your own meaning that's connected to that. So it's a
Yes.
really helpful guide to be for us, those of us who are boots or on the ground here. Okay,
Yes.
so you met Misha Walden at the police museum, and I know you've done many things, the Winchester Mystery House. I don't know all the other places that you've been to, probably all the hot spots, but
Yes.
there was something really intense that happened to you at the police museum in terms of the pain that you felt. So let's talk us through what that was like when you were there with the dark zone
For
at
sure,
the.
yeah. So I had never been there before, and they didn't tell me the location before I arrived. I just had visions beforehand. And so one of the visions I had was like police jail cells and stuff like that. So when I got there, we're like, oh, there are police jail cells. Another vision that I had before going was a woman who was lying on the ground and, trigger warning, she had blood around her. And so I was like, well, that's odd. I was like, am I going to a place where a woman was murdered or something like that? So I just filed it away in the back of my head because I didn't really know, until I got to the location. Then we get there and a
Mm.
series of things unfolded that were accurate and weird and what have you. But the weirdest moment, the intense moment that you're talking about, we had just finished doing a lot of the investigation, and so I'm seeing the stuff on the walls. I'm seeing like the North Hollywood shootout stuff, so on and so forth. And then I come around a corner, and all of a sudden, a different energy just washes through me. All the other energy had been very masculine, and all of a sudden, a feminine energy came through me, and I started to feel nauseous and sick, like seasick feeling, and extremely emotional. And my knees kind of started to give out, so I had to sort of drop to the floor.
Mm.
And I was sort of bent over for a second, holding my stomach, and I was like, "Oh God, what is this? This is so weird." And everyone kind of stops the investigation, and Rick was great. He was such a caretaker in the moment. He's like, "What's going on?" And so I explained, like, I'm having this weird feeling. It feels like a stabbing sensation in my stomach. And I said, but the weirdest thing about it is it doesn't feel like my stomach, and it feels like my stomach is much bigger. It feels like I'm pregnant. Like I had this sense of like a large belly. And and then fear rushes through me, anger rushes through me, and then just unbelievable sadness, just screaming out in agony kind of sadness. I start crying, and they almost stopped the investigation because it was so overwhelming. But I really quickly was like, okay, hold on, let me get myself together. You know what I mean? So like I grounded, but I kept the connection open, and I just asked her, if whoever she was, if she could show me imagery of like what else was going on, if she wanted to. You know what I mean? And I think I got a rope in there, and I got a sense of being bound. There was like other things that happened. Some of it I've kind of blacked out because it was a lot. And And then someone who worked for the museum, I might have been even been Misha, was like, "Oh, we have the evidence from Sharon Tate's murder in the lockup here." So it wasn't out. You couldn't see it. We didn't, know that that was going to happen. But her energy was there, and I believe the clothing or the knife is something with her actual blood is like in that museum. And I was like, "Are you kidding me right now? This is." And what's weird is, ever since I was like little and I heard about that, I've always been weirdly like, I don't want to say obsessed because I never took the deep dive on it, but I've always felt like a strange, I don't know, emotion for her and empathy for her. Like it was so horrible and it was so tragic and it didn't need to happen.